This weekend so far, we've seen the white man 100-meter world record fall, and quite frankly, crushed.
He's getting challenged, but he will hold off all challengers.
We're seeing the development of two of the greatest NCAA sprinters we've ever seen. Records held by Sha'Carri Richardson and Christian Coleman in serious danger. And on top of that, something I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. The revival of the men's long jump. So, let's get into it. Alright, I'll admit it. I thought this was Australia's Lachlan Kennedy's record for the taking. Consistency, multiple sub-10s, and to be absolutely frank, there was no other white guy within his vicinity. And then boom, Sam Blaskowski clears it out of nowhere, bulleting out the blocks and defies his usual race pattern, edging out the field to the very end.
Side of the track, he's getting challenged, but he will hold off all challengers in 9.89.
Wow. 9.89 and a very legal 1.5 wind. That's number 2 in the world this year, only to a time that was also ran this weekend, and it sits second equal with the 400-meter world champion Colin Kebonat-Chippy. It also makes him a top 60 100-meter athlete of all time, which might not sound super impressive, but it is a time that would grab a podium spot at almost any global championship, including last year. And honestly, 9.89 speaks for itself. I don't think I need to justify how legitimately fast this is for any athlete of any background. There's a reason we're in May, and Noah Lyles, Oblique Seville, who did just run 9.96 for a season opener, and Jordan Anthony haven't run faster yet. This is just moving. And as spoken earlier, it also crushes the white man 100-meter world record. Now this has been a continuous running gag on the channel. It is very unofficial. World Athletics would definitely not keep a record of something like this. So moving on, statistically, white athletes are solid to great at almost every other event. But for some reason, they unproportionately underperform in the men's 100 meters specifically. Previous to today, only 6 white men had run under the 10-second barrier. And alone at the top stood France's Christophe Lemaitre with a time of 9.92 back in 2011. A time that has stood for 15 years. And in one race, from not on the list at all, Blaskowski immediately shoots to the top, making it 7, while entering a new barrier as the only white man to go sub 9.9. Now, if you recall, and you might have already angrily responded in the comments, I said this time was out of nowhere, which is a half-truth. On one hand, he was always an outside shot. He was a Division III athlete in the NCAA, but there, he was an absolute killer. 11 national titles spread across the 60-meter, 100-meter, 200, and 4x100. He improved his PR over the course of his college career from a high 10.2 all the way down to a 10.05. But that's also the reason why I said out of nowhere. His previous PB was a 10.05. That's a pretty far outside shot to break 9.92. You know, it's pretty common knowledge, but dropping 0.16 seconds off your 100-meter time at this level is gargantuan. And you can already work that out just looking at his progression. He dropped just over half of that in the last 3 years. Now that's not to say I'm questioning the legitimacy of the time. It actually seems like a really honest effort, purely based off what the athletes ran around him. A lot of the guys he beat in this race, running around their PRs, except Crump, who's a long jumper and ran his first sub 10 as well, so props to him. He's also been a consistent 10.0 guy, especially last year, so a breakthrough isn't unexpected. But this big? Maybe a little. Before I do hop on the Blaskowski hype train, I would like to see him do it again, because that's not something we've seen out of the majority of the top white guys. And to bring the list up again, only 2 of these athletes have actually run sub 10 more than once. Hence why I was starting to think Kennedy would be that guy to break this record. So I'm excited to see how his season will unfold. 9.89 is so far reserved from 10 flat. Undoubtedly we'll see him run a 9 something again, just by how much. And while I mentioned it is fast enough to medal at most global championships, theoretically, first, he has to get there. And being from America, 9.89 last year has you 6th at the US trials. Now let's talk about the NCAA. Sam Blaskowski ran the 2nd fastest time this year because Auburn University's Kanyinsola Ajayi blew the NCAA regional qualifiers apart with a 9.84. Gone from the gun, and he just stepped on it.
Mockman trying to chase him down, but no man will. Kanyinsola Ajayi, and that's a new world lead.
Even doing it with a slideys before the line. Just to let us know this isn't him going all out. It's not rare to see the world leader be an NCAA athlete at this time of year. Their championship is literally next week, so they're pretty close to peaked. What is rare is how fast this is. 9:84 is the second fastest time we've ever seen in the NCAA, only 0.02 seconds behind Christian Coleman's 9:82, which after that, he very quickly became a world beater and one of the fastest in history. It also puts Ajayi in the top 30 fastest of all time, and it's a handy Nigerian national record. I don't think many people would argue 9:84 is just historically fast. But without some added context, I think a lot of people are actually missing what we're seeing unfold. Ajayi has been an up-and-coming sprinter for a while now. At 19 years old, he finished third at the NCAA championships behind Louis Hinchliffe, who went pro and has now come back to the NCAA. Bit weird, but okay. In 2025, age 20, he came fourth in a razor-tight final to Jordan Anthony, but had the fastest time in the NCAA that year with a 9:92. And that same year, he qualified to the World Championship final with a 9:88 in the semis, and outright came sixth. And then finally, this year, age 21, he's the world leader and by far the heavy favourite heading into the NCAA championships. There is a nice steady progression here from 19 years old to 21 that gives us a strong indication he's developing into a 9.7 guy. Early this year, after he took the NCAA 60-meter title, equaling Coleman's record of 6.45, I compared him and Jordan Anthony in terms of future prospects. And I said outright, Ajayi was looking to be the better prospect. And while Anthony continues to get the hype since he's American, and that's the majority of the online fan base, statistically, Ajayi continues to get ahead. Anthony has a PB of 9:91, Ajayi's is 9:84. Anthony has 3 sub-10 second races, Ajayi now has 7. And they're both 21 years old, and if you really want to go there, Ajayi's actually younger. If we remove the names, who are you picking as the better athlete? There's also another good comparison of a modern athlete who broke out at a similar age, and that's Oblique Seville. And by the end of age 21, he also had 7 sub-10 second times with a PB of 9:86. But that was by the end of his season, while Ajayi and Anthony are still in the middle of theirs. And here are some other 21-year-old prodigies. Ajayi is literally up there with the greatest prospects in 100-meter sprinting. He already made the World Champs final last year and came a sneaky 6th, yet he's still going pretty well under the radar. Next week is the NCAA Champs. Not only is it going to be exceptionally competitive, spearheaded by Ajayi of course, there's also Watkins, who's gone 9:95, Hinchliffe, who won in 2024 and is rounding back into form, Nikedia, who's run some crazy wind-aided times, and they're all just from the west side. Then there's also Bokpin, Dwyer and Ocon, who all went sub-10 on the east. 9:82 by Coleman is in serious danger, and even if it doesn't get beat, who cares? Because in the next couple years, there's a good chance we see Ajayi run a 9.7 and seriously enter the conversation of challenging for a world title. Just like everyone else on this list. Mark my words. But what Ajayi is doing on the men's, Adaejah Hodge is arguably doing even better on the women's. The current NCAA records in the women's sprints are 10.75 by Sha'Carri Richardson and 21.8 by Abby Steiner. Hodge has already gone 10.77 and 21.92 earlier this year. What else really needs to be said considering we're going into the NCAA champs next weekend? No, there is a little bit. At her regional finals, I did have her to challenge these records, but she took a more conservative route. She handedly cleaned up the 200 with a 22.06, but in the 100 meter, there was a slew of sub-11 second women, including Hodge, who went 10.9, but 4 other women, Walker, Jackson, Selby and Looney, all went sub 10.9. Originally, what I thought would be an easy win, now kind of looks up in the air. And it sort of is, but the odds still weigh pretty heavily in Hodge's favour. We already know she can go faster, hence 10.77, but in her heat, she went 10.86, while pretty clearly shutting it down. And the same thing in her 200 meter heat, where she went 22.3, shutting it down, and what looks to be 30 meters out.
Season, she shuts it down and still wins by about 15 meters.
When I saw this, man, I thought 21.8 was over. I've still got her to challenge these records, and like the men's, it will be very competitive. But in my opinion, she has another gear that these other women don't. Now this one was unexpected. We are seeing the first inklings of a serious revival. Just this week, we saw two-time Olympic champ and world champion Tentoglo find his rhythm again with an 8:49.
Και θα το κάνει σήμερα, θα το κάνει.
He struggled hard last year, so it's great signs to see him back heading into top form. Simon Ehammer yesterday, mid-decathlon, went 8:51, and visually, it looked utterly massive. That's a world record long jump in the decathlon, and he did it en route to his highest scoring first day ever. But in the NCAA, Zimbabwe's Chikomba went 8:75. Dude was a step away from the end of the pit. So not only do we have these three, we've seen three other 8.4 meter jumpers this year, Villani and Boyakov being in their early 20s. I've been keeping my eye on this one, and all the pieces are finally coming together. We're truly seeing a revival in this event. But a little bit more about Chikomba's jump. It was illegal, 3.2 tailwind. But that doesn't matter anyway, because still, all conditions, that's a top 19 jump ever. And no, not top 19 athlete, top 19 jump, which does make him the 8th furthest jumping athlete ever all conditions. But unlike the sprints, where sometimes an illegal windy time never translates to an illegal time, when we look at big illegal jumps, Pedro's and Miguel Echevarria being the prime examples, 892 and 875 illegally, they jumped close to it legally eventually anyway. And that's the early weekend wrap-up. The Rabat Diamond League is probably on right now, if you happen to be watching this immediately, so hopefully something cool happens, and I'll see you all very soon.